Welcome, welcome, welcome to this edition of Sagionic 1027. We are so glad that you decided to join us today, and with us, I have another one of those guests. And some of you may be wondering, where does she get these guests? Well, I have friends who have friends who have friends, like kind of like the Fabergé commercial back in the day, and they'll tell two friends, and so on and so forth. And so I got to meet Dawn, I want to say in my mind's eye, through somebody else sharing her within the last little over a year ago. It's the first time I heard her name. And it was then that I just started to be very encouraged by what she was sharing and what she was doing in helping others to develop to be the very best that they could be. So this is welcome, Dawn Rowe. We are so glad you're here, and I'm really excited for our viewers and listeners to get to learn a little bit about you. So welcome.
Thank you. What an honor to be here.
Yeah. And so since this interview is about you, you can stay in the moment right now and share a little bit about, what you guys are doing, or you could go back and paint the backdrop on how you were brought to the place in wanting to do this project. So
Okay.
you get to drop viewers down wherever you decide to drop them.
Okay, I'll drop down in about 2018. I met Jamie and Donna Winship. They came to a youth camp and they were teaching about identity. And as I listened to them, I was like, oh, I kind of do this in my classroom. And the more they talked, they gave words for what I do. And I have administrators and friends that are at my school, and they would say things like, you got to tell people how you run your classroom. And I'm thinking, well, I don't really have the words for it. But once I got to know Donna and Jamie Winship at Identity Exchange, then I realized, okay, now I have words for what I do. And that's when I wrote The Ripple Effect of Love in the Classroom. So then after that, I got trained by Donna and Jamie Winship. Probably, yeah, that was 2019. And then I started writing the book, and the book got published in 2022. So the book is for any educator. It is going to have some religious talk or Christianese, but the book's purpose is for anybody, any teacher, but it doesn't even have to be a teacher to be able to pick it up and go, okay, this is how we can do love in the classroom, in our community, at our workplace, just different ideas of how to spread love and build a community. And
That's
then,
great.
yeah, and then after the training I got from them, I've had I've watched everything they've put out on the internet, and they're my mentors. And then I decided to write a book on how to teach identity to students from K to 3 to 5, 6 to 8, and 9 to 12. So I'm in the process of writing that book with a friend so that any teacher could pick up that book and go, okay, I'm going to teach identity to this grade level. And when I say identity, that means like who you are at the core. It's not like gender or sexual identity. It's who you are at the core, why you're on the planet, and what we need from you as a person.
That's great. I like that you prefaced it with need, right? What we need, because everybody has something to offer, right? But I want to go back just a wee bit, right? And I like how you said, although this project, this book, The Ripple Effect of Love in the Classroom, right? Although it may have I like visuals, a Christian spin on it, right? If we just keep life real, well, if you have a professional firefighter, if you have a professional electrician, if you have a professional mechanic or a professional airline pilot, right? We don't go check their whole portfolio to see whether they have a religious point of view or not. We don't do that, right? We trust many times their position in which they're functioning professionally. Okay, so I want to start this off by saying that for our viewers that here I like to tell people, don't let one word stop you from learning past that word. And so I want to share that with her. But don't let the verbiage or the label of Christianity stop you from moving past in this interview to hear this. Brilliant. This is brilliant. This piece of work is brilliant. Okay? So, carry on.
Yes, and Donna and Jamie Winship, they work with CEOs, they work with police departments, they've worked in the Mideast for 30 years, helping to stop terrorism and teaching terrorists their identity. So when they came back to the United States, now they're in all these different avenues of the world. So education, police, government, baseball players. They worked with the Seahawks. I mean, it goes on and on who they work with to teach people their identity. And when you do that, people understand their value. And then they understand they have something to give to the world. And then we can pull on what they have. And then you start to understand the people you work with better because you see, oh, that's their gifting, that's their gifting. A little bit like a personality test, those help you understand a person.
Okay.
But this is deeper because it's just a deeper core work than a personality test.
And also, if you are actively you're in high school, right? If you're actively in this atmosphere, it is actually helping our future leaders to run our nation, to function in the world with their gifts, talents, or abilities.
For sure. Yeah, so it's interesting when I have students that are hard to work with, it might take me a little while to find the gold in them. And then when I find the gold and call it out, then they feel better about who they are. And then they want to learn more because now they understand that they do have value. That's one of the best things about teaching identity. You can take the hardest kid and speak life into them, and then they're going to be like, okay, I am valued. I do have a purpose on this planet, and it gives them hope. And we have a lot of problems in our society with teenagers. Hope is lacking. There's depression, anxiety. You guys know it's on the rise. So this is just a really good tool to help kids find hope and value and excitement to get up in the morning.
That's good. That is so good. Because it is lacking, right? It's greatly lacking in, I'm 56 and I don't ever remember, okay, I'm 56 and I remember when I was 15 and I was at a fabric store. And this woman by the name of Marty Charbonero, because I got her name. She came up to me and she spoke words of encouragement to me. I never forgot him. She said something along the lines of, "You were created for greatness." First time in my life I'd ever heard that.
Wow.
And so it was, so can you share with us, where do you want to start with sharing, because this project is so big. You got to see things walked out, right? Then you got to figure out, how do you articulate this project in the form of a book, The Ripple Effect of Love in the Classroom, right? And so can you share with viewers some of the examples or how you even initiate this? Because people aren't used to this. They're not used to what?
Okay. Yeah, let's start with the results. So this is not specifically speaking to identity, but this is speaking to the power of words. This happened before I got trained in everything. And this young man was in my classroom, and I noticed that he was starting to withdraw a little bit, but I didn't see any huge red flags. So we do these things at my school called Prairie Pride Awards.
Okay.
And I gave him a Prairie Pride Award in front of the whole class. And the pride stands for preparation, respect, integrity. I forget what the D is. It's like disciplined, you're determined. And then excellence. And so basically, I gave him a Prairie Pride Award in front of the whole class. And then I told him why. And not long after that, he was at home getting ready to kill himself. And then he remembered the words that were spoken over him, and he decided not to. And this is a young man that came from a pretty good home, but he was struggling with identity. So he came and asked me, he said, Mrs. Rao, can I talk to you early in the morning pretty soon? I said, sure, come on in. So he came in one morning before school and he told me what happened. And I was like, oh my goodness, did you talk to your parents? Like, how are you doing now? He goes, yeah, I told them everything. So you never know when your words can save a life, right? So as far as identity goes, I incorporate it. So I teach history and I teach psychology.
Okay.
And it's really easy to incorporate identity into psychology because I teach personality, I teach adolescence, I teach child development, and identity fits into all of that. So when I teach history, it fits into the imperialism section, which I can get to in a little bit. So
Okay.
basically, like if I were to introduce identity to my students, it would be something like this. Hey guys, today we're going to talk about your personality some more. We've been studying that, but now we're going to go a little bit deeper. We're going to ask love, who love says you are. So I need you to think about love. Now, love for you could be a grandma, an aunt, a mom, a dad, a place. Like, where do you picture yourself receiving love? And you have the kids imagine that. And honestly, the younger they are, the better they are with their imagination. But anyway, at the high school level, I have the kids do that. And then I simply ask the question, okay, we're going to ask love, who does love say that you are? And I said, it may not be a negative thing because love only speaks life. So if you hear a negative thing, you need to do your best to shut it down and say, no, I don't want to hear that. People are really good at hearing negative, and it's harder to hear positive. That goes for all ages, okay? So I just kind of have to work with the kids to train them like, we're only going to hear positive things.
Okay.
I quiet the room. Everybody's very respectful. They may or may not close their eyes. Most of them do. And then I just ask love to speak. And I wait a few minutes. I tell the kids, and a few minutes seems like a lifetime when you're dealing with teenagers. And I tell them, you could get a picture, you could get a word, you could get a phrase. And then, I wait a couple of minutes. And then I come back and I'm like, okay, who's brave? Who's willing to share something they heard? And there's always kids that are willing to share. And in the healthiest of classes where I've developed a good classroom culture and kids are trusting each other, you can kind of go around the room and kids will be like, okay, I'm a servant leader. I'm a charismatic leader. I'm a fighter for the underdog. I'm a learner. I'm a lifelong learner. And it just is beautiful to watch them embrace who they are. And then other kids will get a picture, and we'll talk about the picture. And other kids will get a word like kind. Now, the problem with that is a whole bunch of kids could get the word kind.
Okay.
So then I have to break it down for them. Like, okay, let's talk about that a little bit. If you're kind, and so are four other people in the classroom, I believe that we're all very unique, just kind of like a fingerprint. We all have a different thumbprint, fingerprint. So let's talk about your core identity and how you were created differently than everybody else here. And then I work with them on trying to figure out, maybe you're kind to the special ed kids, maybe you're a super kind friend, maybe you're really kind to your family. So that's what I work on. And then eventually I make a spreadsheet, and the spreadsheet has every kid's name in it, and they all put their identity in there as well as their personality type. And so I keep that, and I have the kids also write down on a little card what they heard, and a lot of them will put it inside their phone case. And so they can look at their phone case every day and go, okay, this is who I am at the core. Or they put their piece of paper on their mirror, or they put it in a book where, something they're opening up every day so that they can view who they are at the core. Because what'll happen is those kids will inevitably have somebody say something negative to them through social media or straight up to their face or behind their back. Welcome to the teenage years. There's a lot of that going on. And that's how they get discouraged. But if they go, oh no, I know who I am. I'm reading it right here. And so if somebody told me something else, I know that's a lie. And so then I can teach them how to exchange a lie for a truth. I can teach them how to exchange a negative emotion for a positive emotion. So there's just a lot of different things you can do with identity to keep their mind healthy so they understand who they are at the core. So it's pretty powerful.
So you've probably seen some extreme transformation in from a child who enters in the ninth grade to a child who graduates in the 12th grade. You've probably seen much in perhaps there was a person who was very downcast or reserved, right? Or somebody who was told they don't have the I don't know what to think of it. I'll use myself. Okay, I was told growing up I was hard-headed and I was stubborn. I wasn't told I was determined and a go-getter. I wasn't told that, right? It was my father, uh, um, uh, the voice of love. The voice of love is who told me, "Oh no, you are determined, and you're just driven. This is who you are. You're determined and driven, right?" And so just
Yeah.
the difference it makes for people to hear the voice of love and truth of who they are.
Yeah. And this goes back. Okay, so this is something I need to point out too. So you can
Okay.
have an identity spoken over you that's real positive that maybe mom and dad did, or grandma and grandpa, or whoever, from a very young age. And you may not buy into it for a while. So some
Okay.
of your identities are going to be there from birth, and then you really live them out much later in life.
Okay.
Okay. The example I would share is, as a little girl, I wrote a lot of books. I was always writing books. And then here I am in my 50s writing books that it can get published, right? So back then I did it for fun, but I didn't think about how I'm an author until I was in my 50s. Now, other times what can happen is your identity is there, but the world shut it down. The mean voices shut it down. The bad words that were spoken over you shut it down. So our identities come under attack from a very young age. And so we have to find out how to unearth them. So also know that identities, not only do they come under attack, but they can be in different seasons. So you get married, you have children, you're going to have different identities then than you did when you were in your teens. Then you get to be my age and you have different identities in the 50s, in the 60s, in the 70s, but you're still valuable. And a lot of older people think that they're kind of done at 70 or 80.
Mm.
No, that's a lie also. So our identity has to be continually revisited. So we need to ask this question, who am I, quite often. So when I do this with groups, sometimes my own identity will sharpen, we'll get more specific, or I'll get a new one. So
Okay.
right now I operate in trailblazer, author, mentor to many. So those are my three kind of big ones right now.
That's really good because on this call, I heard reporter and paparazzi, right? On our because for me, with that driven, right, that driven drive in me, right, that determined drive in me, I'm not easily swayed. Right now, picture a reporter and a paparazzi. They're going to push through or navigate through a situation if they want to do a news report on a situation at hand or on a person.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, yeah.
And so those are very positive. So it's just so vital that we teach people to hear the truth. And if they're not hearing the truth, what is blocking that? And so I have to teach that to the kids. It can be fear, it can be guilt, it can be shame. Now in psychology, I can do a deeper dive with that because that's part of my mental health unit, that's part of stress and health, that's part of adolescence. I mean, there's so many units that it fits into. But when it comes to history class, I don't have the amount of time. So those are going to be quicker lessons.
Okay.
And so let me just give an example of how I
Okay.
can do it in history class. Okay, so this year I'm teaching history again, and we're coming up on imperialism pretty soon. And that's when one country takes over another country because they want their stuff. Why do they want their stuff? Greed. They feel like they don't have enough. And so as I go through all the reasons of why there's this separation worldview and connection worldview, the kids are looking at the list of all the things that are separation, and they're looking at the list of all the things that are connection. And then you can watch their wheels spin as they sit there and they go, okay, I understand that France got imperialistic. I understand that Great Britain got imperialistic. The United States got imperialistic. Belgium got imperialistic. But let's look at, they start to apply it to themselves. Oh, so they'll raise their hand, Mrs. Rao, what if I'm doing some of this stuff? And I'm like, yeah, well, here's the thing. We want to try to live on the abundance side, the connection side, not on the scarcity separation side. So we are going to struggle in life. And sometimes we're going to go over separation and think, I don't have enough money. I'm not enough. I don't have enough food. I am afraid of what's happening with the election. I think it's going to change my life and I'm fearful. On and on and on, especially with our news media. It's always trying to scare us into fear. So it teaches kids to keep their mind out of fear and to choose to plan it in abundance and connection. Because if you live in abundance and connection, there's going to be a good supply of people around you. You're going to understand you have enough resources because if you're not blocked by fear, shame, and guilt, you're going to get creative. And then you're going to find answers to problems. So my husband, his identity is creative problem solver. And he is so good at that. Like, it's almost fun to see a problem come along. Yeah. Instead of get stressed out, he just sits back and goes, okay, I can figure this out. I'll find a creative way. And man, he will find a creative way to solve things. So it's a challenge, and it brings a lot of joy to your life when you're operating in the truth of who you are. So when I've been creating this class in 2019, I have been in a battle with people at my school who don't want the class to happen, even though administrators wanted it and the district level wanted it. So it was kind of this ongoing thing and just burdensome and difficult. Now, I didn't get mad at the person. I'm sure I had moments where I was frustrated with them, but that's not my battle, because I know that what I'm doing is best for kids, and I know that I'm supposed to be doing it, and I just stick to that. And so I'm going to continue working on this class, fine-tuning it, writing the books, getting the word out there, and teaching kids the truth about who they are.
That's right. And there's this saying that love overcomes a multitude of difficulties, right? Love always wins. It always wins. It always soothes. It always wins. I was having a conversation with one of my grandchildren, and I said to this grandchild, I said, sweetheart, what do you do when somebody speaks something that's not kind to you? She goes, well, I'm known as Graham Cracker, and my husband is Pop Tart, right? And so she says, Graham Cracker, I say in my mind, you were not created to operate like that. And then I think of what difficulty they may be having at home that would cause them to speak like, she is 10. She is 10 years old and tells me this. She goes, and then I think of what difficulty they might be having at home that would cause them to speak like this. And I'm just like, mic drop. I can't believe this came out of a 10-year-old's mouth. Like, such wisdom, insight, right?
That's
if we think of love, right? Why would anybody on earth not want to see others benefit, others grow, others be encouraged, others excel? Right? This to me, it's like a no-brainer, win-win situation, right? So how have you obtained your own mental encouragement, right? On where you're allowed to go and what boundaries have been put up that you can only go this far. How have you maintained a level of encouragement?
Ooh, that's good, because wow, I gotta think of the best way to answer that. So, the boundaries are there as far as who gets to take the class, what grade levels, and those are established by the administrators. And then I just have to flow with submitting to authority.
Okay.
Sometimes there's decisions that are made that I don't agree with.
Okay.
And in the past, there were times when administrators really hurt my feelings and they really didn't have any idea how deep the wound was, because we got new ones and they didn't understand me because they didn't know me. And so I think they were questioning some things. And so I had to really just remember who I was and remember what I was doing was helpful, and that in time they will see my heart and everything will work out. And that's happening as we speak. So I really got hurt 2 years ago and I didn't lash back. I just had to sit back and go, okay, this is a bit of a battle, but they have no idea how deeply they wounded me. Because I've had a reputation that's very good for over 30 years in my district, and I'm well respected by the community. And then all of a sudden, for questioning and an accusation to come at me, it was like, what's going on? So yeah, I had to really sit into my identity and trust that everything would work out.
Yeah.
And it's working out pretty well.
And not only that, but not only that, Dawn, but those who have been participants who have received the knowledge of love, you can't undo what you learn. You can't undo it, right? You may have different things that come at you, but your brain was created to function positively. That's how you were created, right? So if we think of Dr. Caroline Leaf, right, and
Yeah,
she talks about how the brain works, I think the most fascinating thing I learned is, let's say you're a child and I'll tell on myself, you're getting ready to go to Sunday school and the house is always a wreck, and then you're 5 and it's your responsibility to find your shoes. Well, you can't find the shoes in piles of laundry and wreckness everywhere, right? So you have to go to Sunday school with one shoe on, right? And just and you're just like, what? Right? I remember going to this store. It was closed because back then, stores were closed on Sunday, right? With the hopes, I think it was a wigwam or something, to try to find a shoe, right? Why did I share this story? Oh, because Dr. Caroline Leaf. So she said the only memories you remember are those that were encapsulated. See if I can do a teardrop. Those that are encapsulated by a memory of emotions. So it's only
yeah,
good emotions or bad emotions that the memory is inside, almost like a teardrop, right? It's stored inside of your brain in like a teardrop, right? So when these young adults, even or adults or people, decide to partner with love, we can actually go back and change that memory.
yeah.
That
That's
is
one thing.
wild.
I love doing that with kids, and I love Dr. Leaf. She is valuable. I've read a bunch of her books and listened to her. So as far as that goes, like exchanging the negative emotion for the
Yeah.
positive emotion, sometimes what I have to do with that one is meet with the kid at lunch or after school,
Okay.
depending how deep it goes. And sometimes I can do those really quick right there in the classroom.
Okay.
Okay, let's think. So those of you that have heard a negative emotion, and you're not hearing very well, you just keep getting a negative thought or a negative picture. Can you go back and ask yourself, when's the first time you had that negative thought or that negative emotion?
Mm.
And sometimes the kids will actually say in class, yeah, I was 5 years old and I remember what was said. And then I ask love, hey, where was love when that happened to you? And
Mm.
kids will cry, adults will cry because they'll get an image of love with them in the
Mm.
middle of the hard thing and realize that love was always with them
Mm.
and never left them and got them through that hard time. But they didn't realize that love was right there. So it can
Mm.
be a powerful exchange where they get healed in that moment because they remember the bad thing and then they hear the truth about what really happened then. Now, it could have been a really hard thing that happened, and it could be a very true thing that happened, obviously, like a divorce, because that really rattles
Mm-hmm.
kids. but a lot of times they think it's their fault, so they're hearing the lie that the divorce was my fault. And then you ask, well, what does love say? And love says, this had nothing to do with you. This was your parents' situation, and so it's time to heal from that and move forward. Sometimes I have to go through a forgiveness lesson with the kids too, because that can block them from hearing the truth. Like I said, in history class, I can't camp out on that. They just, it's like maybe a day lesson, but in psychology, we can go through all those steps.
Yeah, I like what you shared that I'll have to pull out a little heart here. I like what you shared as far as that unforgiveness could block you, right? So if we were to have a little heart like this, and I remember years ago somebody said to me, I'll pull up the little heart, there's a heart, right? I remember somebody said to me years ago, I can't believe you don't hate, and they were referring to a person. And so I shared with them, oh no, you do not want me to hate that person, because if I hated that person, then there would be a section of my heart that was filled with hate, right? So can you give us an example where you were able to walk someone through, right, what unforgiveness was doing to their true self and hindering their true self from operating in life?
Yeah, so you're exactly right. It can contaminate your heart. And what I always tell the kids is you can't give what you don't have. So in order to be like a stream of living water to other people around you and to give your identity to other people, you have to keep that stream healthy. You got to keep love flowing through you. And we're all going to have blocks. Different things are going to happen in our life, whether it's grief or loss or anger or frustration or whatever. Those things can block us from being able to give out the truth that we carry and the love that we carry and the identity that we carry. So yeah, I will work through with people where they've had unforgiveness, and typically they need to write it down. They don't always like to talk about that one out loud. And then I can respond to them on paper, okay, this is who you need to forgive. And then I actually have a guest speaker come in, but I have curriculum that a guest speaker made that I can hand out to the kids. And it's like a journaling activity, so they can work through the unforgiveness at home, and it's a packet they can keep forever. And it just shows them how to forgive. And then they understand that they've released that anger, and then that weight falls off their back. So if I do it in class, a kid will say, wow, it just feels like a ton of weight fell off my back. I feel so much lighter right now because I was able to forgive that person. But you know what? I will have plenty of other kids that will say, I'm not ready. And that's fine too. So I will actually have them write down the people that they need to forgive. Like they'll make a list. Some kids will have nobody, and other kids will have a huge list. And I have them think about it overnight. Then they come back into class the next day. This is after I've taught what unforgiveness does to your health. So they've heard how damaging it can be. And then I come back the next day and I'm like, all right, if you're willing to forgive these people, you're going to roll that up, that paper ball, and you're going to throw it in the garbage. Basically, you're going to hand it to love and find out what love does with it. And they'll throw it in the recycle bin, and then in their head, I'll also ask them, what does love do with that unforgiveness? And then they get images of what love does with the unforgiveness. And they all have different images. But there will be kids that'll be like, I'm scratching this person off and this person off because I'm not ready to forgive them yet. And then I just warn them, like, okay, if you don't, you know what can happen to your health in time. I understand that you're not ready today, but let's just hope that down the road you can let go of it, because you're going to build bitterness and anger towards those people, and it can create a lot of problems with relationships and your health and on and on. So they get it, and it's just unfortunate when they don't do it. But, forgiveness is a process, and I have to teach them that too. You can forgive somebody in the moment, but it might not feel any different. Yeah. It could take years to let go of some of that pain.
Yeah. That's really
good.
But
if you get really good at this, if you get really good at this, you can actually let go of negative emotions pretty quickly. There's going to be times when something happens, like a kid walked into my class one day, and it was before class. He said, Mrs. Rowe, I have an audition coming up. I'm really nervous about it, and I feel like some lies are getting in the way. And he stated the lies, and I said, okay, well, what are the truths? And he stated the truths. I walked him through it, and in between classes, less than 5 minutes, he went to his audition later in that week, and he nailed it. And then I had another kid. He was like, I could tell that he wasn't walking in who he was, and I'm like,
Yeah.
hey, how you doing? And he goes, well, I'm actually having a hard time. And I walked him through the truth so he could come back to his identity, because it was getting shut down because of how he was feeling. And once again, that was like a 30-second process. So kids will come to me, they'll tell me what's blocking them. I can help them work through it so they can hear the truth again and move forward. And I have to do that with myself. I always tell them, I don't have it all together. There are times where I have to do this for myself, and it's an ongoing process for me too. It's a practice. It's something like the windships teach me. Jamie does it every day. Jamie and Donna do this exercise every day. Is there anything blocking me from hearing the truth today? And with Jamie, it's often disappointment, because that was a big root in his life as a kid, that he didn't measure up, and he felt like he was disappointing people. So on the daily, he's going to go speak to people. He's going to be in huge conferences, and he has to know that he's not a disappointment.
Yeah, yeah. I really like that you shared the health benefit, right? And how
Yeah,
it can hinder your health by hanging on to these negative images of whether it be betrayal or hurtful situations that took place in your life. Well, I am not the one who arranges the schedule of who says yes to speak, but all of my interviews today are in the same note. And I'm just like, you've got to be kidding me. Literally, this gal made it to her 40s, and then all of a sudden, her body just started to shut down one day. They had her hooked up to a machine because she was a nurse, and her resting heart rate was 185. And then she starts to go through all of these different tests, and a doctor, a medical practitioner asks her, have you endured trauma in your life? And she went home and asked Love, can you speak to me about, not Love as in my husband, because people who know me know I call my husband Love, right? But she asked, Truth and Love, could you speak to me? And all of a sudden, something she didn't know was there was
yeah,
brought to her memory. And then once she discovered, like, how do you figure out what this human body has absorbed, right? What your emotions have absorbed, what you have relationally or physically absorbed. Once you discover that, then we don't have to stay there. We don't have to stay there. And one thing I like about Dr. Caroline Leaf, she proved that the brain is neuroplastic.
oh yeah,
She was one of the founding doctors that proved it. It was neuroplastic. We don't need to be stuck in the mode of, well, my great grandma was like this, my grandma was like this, my mom was like this. Well, I guess I'm going to be like this, right? So,
yeah.
so did you ever watch the movie $1 Million Baby? Oh my goodness, it would be a great movie for your students to watch. Excellent movie. If you ever throw a movie, my grandkids have watched a movie at school, right? $1 Million Baby with Clint Eastwood. There are principles in there that are just profound.
Okay,
Yeah, $1 Million Baby, and you'll know why I said you'll watch the whole thing, and oh my gosh, there's so many lessons in it,
oh
lessons in
good.
it to learn.
Yeah.
Um, so what to share? What else where do you want to take viewers? Because I just see this going across the nation and across the world. This is incredible. People need to know this, Dawn.
Yeah, well, really what I would love people to do is to follow Jamie and Donna as much as possible, the Windships,
Okay.
through Identity Exchange. So that's their website.
Okay.
And then Jamie wrote a book called Living Fearless. That's been out over a year, I believe. And that will really take a person through the steps of hearing the truth about who they are. And then I'm excited about the book that I'm writing because I know that teachers are in such frustration because kids have changed so much since COVID that they need the tools to teach their kids their value. And I have a friend
Mm.
who got trained in this stuff over the summer at a conference that we went to, and she has experienced so much trauma in her past. But because of these principles, she's on the daily almost texting me saying, here's a lie I've heard my whole life, and here's the truth. And then the next day, here's a lie that I've believed so much of my life, and here's the truth. She's getting set free by having these moments every day of simply getting quiet and asking the questions, what are the lies I'm listening to? And what is the truth I need to hear? And it's unraveling her trauma. And it's beautiful to
Ah.
watch this play out in her. And she's a teacher as well. And she is doing this in her classroom with her little second graders. So it's beautiful. So the more teachers that get their hands on the book that we're writing, I think it's going to be really helpful. Because then when kids understand their value, they are going to be able to learn better. So that's kind of my big push is let's get this out to as many schools as possible so that kids can grow to become the healthiest individuals they can be.
So it almost sounds like um let's use this cap here. Let's use this cap here. I like my visuals. It almost sounds like you are helping kids and students to put on this protective helmet to guard their mind so that their mind thinks and functions under the helmet of love.
For sure.
And because
Yeah, this,
without this protective helmet of love, then their brain is subjected to negative verbiage that goes through the air.
yeah, that too. And then, when you talk about Dr. Caroline Leaf and plasticity, your brain can rewire simply through gratitude. So that's another big part of my class. With my students, we do a gratitude journal for many, many weeks every single day. And they are to come in, pull out their journal, write down things they're thankful for, and they know that can pull them out of a pit and help rewire their brain. That simple activity can make a profound difference in the way their brain works and then the way that they will feel. So that's just another example of neuroplasticity and rewiring the brain.
Yeah.
And then, of course, exercise and eating right and all these.
Yes. Foods really do make a difference.
Yeah.
They really do. Different ingredients in food. I remember Dr. Caroline Leaf shared once that if a person is in the state of a rage, it is like a forest fire in your brain. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, like
Yeah.
how, like, so when something happened after I heard that, it's like, oh my gosh, I got to get past this real quick, like, right. And it's just like, no, 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 I don't want to hold this in me. Don't want to hold this inside of me. I just don't want a forest fire in my brain. Because
Right. And
yeah.
the
Go
other
ahead.
thing is like, I don't know about you, but growing up, emotions weren't really talked about. They were kind of like, just act like you have it all together, shove it under the carpet, everything will be okay later. And I teach kids to lean into their emotions because what is it teaching you? What is that pain teaching you? What are you supposed to learn from it? And I think that is a tremendously valuable tool. I would have loved to have that as a child also. And my friend is doing that with her second graders. And this little boy, he's on the spectrum and he could feel the rage coming up in him. And he said to his teacher, my friend, he's like, I feel it coming. I feel it coming. She says, well, what do you feel? Anger, frustration. Where do you feel it? In my belly. It's like fire in my belly. And then she was like, okay, let's release that without having the rage. And then she's taught him how to self check. Hey, I feel it coming. And then how to release it without having a meltdown. And if you can do that with a little kid in second grade, think of the emotional control he's going to have as he grows. It's just going to be beautiful.
Yeah.
What do you need to learn from that pain in your belly? What's making you frustrated right now? I don't know how to do my math. I just don't get it. Okay, take a deep breath. Let's take a look at the math problem. I'm here to help you. There's nothing to fear because I'm with
Yeah.
you. I'm your teacher to get you through
Yeah.
this. That kind of an activity, how powerful is that
Yeah, and
to
and
help the
and
kids?
you are in essence creating um, um, you're creating a new gauge in how society's going to function. Literally, you're
Yeah,
creating a new gauge in how society's going to function, helping students to be more aware, not by helping students to be more aware what is psychologically going on inside of them, right? How are their emotional responses manifesting themselves, right? How are their actions towards others, cause and effect, right? Their actions
yeah,
towards another. What is happening when they unleash something, right? By teaching them this, it will help them to see in someone else if they are in a twisted ball, we'll just call it a
yeah.
twisted or a crisis or a emotional conflict, right? You're helping others to look outwards, but until they remove this stuff, these lies from themselves, right? It's making it won't be as easy for them to see in others because there's too much. They're full of too much of their own stuff, so to speak,
Right. Yeah,
right?
so there's a bunch of things going through my head when you say that. So one of them is Maslow, who's very popular in education and psychology.
Okay.
And he says we have these levels. And
Okay.
the first level is physiological. We need water, we need air. And then the second level is safety. We need a good shelter. We need family that cares for us. And that leads into belonging, family and friends. And then self-esteem, setting goals is self-actualization, achieving the goals, learning who we are, all of that. But then the very top level is self-transcendence. And that's where now you're comfortable in your skin, you know your giftings, you know your identity, and now you're thinking about other people.
That's
If you
right.
can get a kid to live at that level at a young age so they can look around and go, okay, here's my gift for this person over here who's upset. I can pour into that kid and help them recover. I need a drink. Uh-oh.
Yeah. My husband would be cheering with the colors of that drinking device there.
Ah, then the other one, well, there's another one I love to talk about too, which is Kohlberg. He's a psychologist who taught moral development. And the highest level of moral development is where you have truth and love come together.
Okay.
So, and psychologists will tell you that most of the world doesn't get to that level. So if we can transform kids to think appropriately about themselves and the people around them, and they're transcendent, then they're going to live at love and truth. So that let's say at some point they get well, this is really terrible, but this is the kind of stories I hear at school.
Okay.
Unfortunately, they've been abused, and now they have to go to court and they have to testify against a family member. Okay, first of all, they need to forgive that family member. That doesn't mean they are justifying what happened, absolutely not, but they want their heart to be healthy. So they can testify that, there are times when so and so has been good to me, but there have also been these times when they've been really hurtful to me. And so that's what I'm going to testify about. I love this person, but what
Ah.
they've done to me is evil. And so they're testifying in a way that they're telling the truth, but yet they're showing that there's still some love for that person. And that doesn't mean they have to
Mm.
go on and obviously not have a relationship with that person. They're drawing a boundary. But if they're a biological relative, there's going to be that soul tie, that connection to them. And so they have to figure out how to make their boundaries now with that person, and it could be that they're going to completely cut them out of their life. But nonetheless, they can get to a place where they've forgiven, and that's where love and
Mm-hmm.
truth come together because they can testify, here's the love, I've seen some goodness, but here's the evil also. Now that's
Mm-hmm.
powerful. I have a counselor that comes in and shares a story just like that of a gal that she worked with, and she had to testify, and that's what happened.
Hmm.
Yeah,
You know, go ahead.
and then if you think about the other levels of development, which is Erickson's levels of development, at the teenage years, it's confusion. It's like, kids are confused about who they are. They're trying to figure out, who am I at the core? And then sexually, they can be confused, and all kinds of questions are coming at them, and social media is bombarding them. That's a normal stage of development, and kids need to know it's normal. You're not weird for having these thoughts. This is what you're going through naturally. You're going to get through it. Because if they
Hmm.
think that they're stuck, they can get depressed and suicidal. They always need to know they're going to move through these levels. They're going to get through. They just need the right people around them to get through the stages. And sometimes kids don't have the great support system, so they need to find it. And they need to find it in teachers and coaches and clubs and uh, positive outlets that can help them grow.
Hmm. So, what about, also, it makes me think of this, Dawn, is that cycles, okay? Natural biological cycles, okay? So, it's been said, the cycles uh, um, um, biologically born female, right? We've heard, you and I have heard cycles, PMS and all this other kind of stuff, right? But I think that there's been a failure to say that men too go through cycles, right? So if I just go back over to the females, probably 20 within the last 20 years, I learned that there's not just a cycle for there's not just a menstrual cycle, right? I learned that the menstrual cycle is the last thing that takes place, but you actually have a 24 to 36-hour period where you feel absent minded. You have a 24 to 36-hour period where you're so tired. You have a 26 to 34-hour period where you could eat the kitchen sink. You have a 24 to 36-hour period where your sex drive is through the roof, right? Then lastly, you have your actual menstrual cycle, right? Well, once I learned this, then when I was in these different stages, it was like, oh, here's where I am right now. And then I learned I could put myself in timeout, or I need sleep, right? Or no, I'm not going to gain weight because during this 24 to 36-hour period where I could eat the kitchen sink, right? Um,
Yeah,
and and um, and then you have to be cautious in the other two categories as a female.
yeah, yeah, for sure.
Right, but just that emotions, we don't need to shove them, but I love what you shared about helping people to understand them, and how do you
Yeah,
work through them, not suppress them, but how do you learn to positively walk through them?
right. And I like what you said too. The boys have to understand that they have cycles too. And
Yes.
and that's very enlightening to them because I think they think, my gosh, what's wrong with me? No, you're okay. You're just having
Yeah.
one of your cycles too with your hormones. And it's going to get better because you're going to start to understand. You're going to start to see the patterns and be like, okay, this is where I'm at today. It's all good. And then I teach coping skills. And it's really beautiful because we've come up with in my classes like over 80 coping skills. We have this huge list, and it's really powerful because a lot of that list comes from the kids. Now, some of them are escapes, like I'm going to just watch Netflix for hours, but
Okay.
others are really helpful. Like I'm going to do the gratitude journal. I'm going to write a song. I'm going to play music. I'm going to take a walk. I'm going to pet the dog. There's going to be these other ones that are really good at restoring you and not just avoidance,
That's
if
right.
that makes sense. Yeah.
Absolutely, and I love that you're dealing with truth and lies, right?
All the
Truth,
time.
truth and lies, truth and lie, and this never leaves us. It never leaves us.
Right.
Um, we're here on earth and we're subjected to all these different things that come our direction. There's no escape, right? And also there's no fast track either. So I think everybody, no matter where you are in your life, you can be, a stay-at-home mom with little kids. You can be corporate America mom, right? It's never too late to begin to learn how to recognize lies, right? But then how do you move forward with love and truth, right?
Right.
You could have a mom in a car, right? Who, okay, we're going to play a game. What's a lie that came out today? And then how do we combat that lie with love and truth?
Right. So Donna Winship shared a story at one of the recent trainings I was at about her son, and they just moved back from the Mid East, and he was in a brand new public school, and it was a very rough public school, and it was rough. Like he was having a little bit of a hard time, and one day he forgot his lunch, and so he was allowed to tell his mother, and she brought the lunch to school, and then the principal brought the lunch to the classroom, and then the teacher held up the lunch and made fun of her son, teased him about it, and he came home defeated, right? And she's like, hey, what's going on? And eventually he talked about it and said, well, this is what happened. And then she said, well, how do you feel right now? And he named the emotion because it was like embarrassed. I don't know if it was shame, but embarrassed, for sure. And then she said to him, why don't you take some quiet time here and think about what you can learn from this? And he came back pretty quickly and said, I feel bad for my teacher because something was bugging him that he made fun of me. And so then that kid made it his priority to reach out to that teacher and encourage that teacher a lot. And it ended up building a really great relationship between him and the teacher because he got empathy for where his teacher was coming from. So if somebody's hurting me, I have to constantly go, okay, why are they coming at me? And then I ask, love, what do you tell me about that person? And I get the empathy for where they're coming from. And then I can deal with them better because then my heart breaks for them and what they have gone through. It's a very helpful technique. Instead of being the victim, look what happened to me at school today. Mom, guess what happened? So and so did this. It's like, no, settle down. How do you feel about that? I feel terrible because of what they said about me. Well, let's take some quiet time here and ask, what does love say about that person? Oh, wow. That person has a really bad home life. They got yelled at by their mom in the morning. They told me that. And so they lashed out at me for whatever reason, they're projecting, whatever it could be.
And
Powerful tool.
it also by teaching this technique, right? It also helps the person who received an emotional verbal infliction, right? To not stay caught up in that moment. So had that child came home and the parent or guardian or a bud or a friend or whatever, right, was like, oh, that's terrible. And then they added to it, right?
Yeah.
That's just like creating more of a mess. And
Yeah.
it's almost, gosh, this is a terrible, terrible vision, but it's a great vision and it's appropriate vision and it's perfect. It would be like taking this situation and smearing manure on it. And then the person's stuck even more, right? And then they got to figure out how to cleanse off the additions that were added, and then figure out how to bring their brain out of this negative moment into a positive moment. And
Yeah.
that's exhausting.
Yeah. One thing that I tell the kids is you got to look at what's driving you. There's stuff in your subconscious that's making you choose poorly. So let's say you're a girl and you choose a bad guy to hang out with, and you call it off with him, and then you choose another bad guy and you call it off with him, and then you like, why are you continuing to choose bad guys? And then you marry one, and then you divorce, and you're finally 40 years old, and you're like, what have I been doing my whole life? And it usually goes back to a childhood wound. So let's take care of those wounds with these kids right now so they don't carry this baggage with them into adulthood and have more manure put on them. They're
Yeah.
going to be able to shed all of that, wash it all off, and then have more opportunity for healthier relationships. No matter how they were raised, they can learn how to do this in a classroom. So it's pretty exciting. I feel like it's really cutting edge, and I feel like it's so necessary for our students right now.
Yeah, it is so good. And, I want to share something with you that came up while you were talking. And it's something that has come up. I think I've done over 260 interviews. I forgot to look at like what the actual total was,
Wow.
right? In a year and a half, I took 6 months or 8 months off. And so November will be 2 years with taking 8 months off for my family. 8, 9, 10, 11, 11 months off. 11 months off. So it'll be 2 years. So we basically in a year, in 13 months, we're not at 13 months yet. We're probably at like 9 months right now. So in 9 months, I've done 260 and change interviews. Okay.
Wow.
But the thought that comes to me, and I've shared this with multiple other people, and this isn't going to go out today, so you'll have time. But I saw a game one time when I was in the midst of an interview. Now I want you to picture what do they call it? A game show that's been around forever and ever, called Family Feud. Okay, just picture the buzzer. That's all I need you to picture. I just need you to see the buzzer. Ding, ding, ding. Right, the buzzer. Right. Well, there was a game, and I'm purposely not going to mention the name of the game. Okay. There was a game that one of my adult children wanted me to play, and it has to do with humans. That's all I'm going to say. And shortly into it, I thought, I can't, in my right consciousness of wanting to let my mind dwell on things that are pure, true, lovely, honest, and just, engage in this game. Okay. But then when I was on set in the midst of an interview, I saw the buzzer, and I saw a game being called Truth or Lies. And I saw people have these cards, and on these cards, you had to decide if a scenario or a situation was listed, is it a truth or a lie? And so picture all these different cards that students would read, and then whoever got the correct answer was, if you hit that buzzer, right, you got to say whether it was a truth or a lie. And then you got to say why it was a truth or a lie. So it's an educational game, but now picture a whole classroom, right? Now picture the money that would come from this game, right? Truth or lies. Right? With no, like, literally, it just gives different scenarios and the fun, but the freedom, the life-changing result. Nobody's grabbed this yet, Dawn. So now I'm passing it off to you. I've given this to multiple people. Nobody has caused it to manifest yet. Truth or lies.
Good. That might be another project. Because we're going to need, so when we're writing this book, we're going to need different activities to drive all this stuff home. There's not a lot of books out there, and so I'm working with a friend of mine to write a picture book that can be used to teach this too. So we need games, we need books, we need activities. So I'm going to be asking a community of teachers, hey, how are you using this in your classroom? What are some ideas you've done? And then my friend and I are putting them into the book that we're writing. We're going to try to get this book done by the end of the school year so it can go out to teachers over the summer. So we'll see. Yeah. And I need a publisher. I couldn't do Amazon. I could do that, but I would love to have a publisher. So we'll see if that works out also.
Yeah. I'm attached to a lot of authors. I've interviewed a lot of authors, I know people who own publishing companies. I know people who own anything associated in that realm. I know stacks of people. Okay. And I could make a phone call tomorrow, and she would be like, "Oh my gosh, Sean, connect us."
Okay.
Yeah. So
then hopefully that will happen.
Oh, our time just flew by. I can't even believe how fast that went. Oh my gosh. So, what are your final words to anybody listening right now? How do you want to share with them a baby step and how they can implement that through love, they can change the mental dialogue that has been hanging out in one's brain?
Yeah, they just need to sit quietly and find a place where they're very happy and at peace. That's helpful. Like whether they're picturing the beach or a specific room in their house or whatever. And then ask love, what do I need to hear from you today? And maybe they don't have any negative emotion that day, but love, what do you want to tell me? And love will give them beautiful words that they can hang on to. That could happen in the middle of the night. You can't sleep. Love, what do I need to hear right now? I need to hear that peace is with me. Yep, no matter what I'm going through, peace is with me. And then they can rest. So it's just getting in tune with hearing. I think we're so distracted with phones and media, and families can get in the way too because we're go, 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 go. But to take that time every day, 10 minutes to an hour, whatever you can afford, and just sit with a journal, boy or girl, guy's journal too, and ask, what do I need to hear today? And love, what are you telling me about this situation? What are you telling me about this emotion? And then make the exchange. I give you love, I give you my pain. I give you my hurt. I give you whatever it is. What do you want to give me in return? And love will always give something beautiful back that you can hang on to so that you can move forward. Hope for the day, encouragement for the day, Like we can move forward. We don't have to be stuck.
That's right.
And we can live in a connection worldview and have an abundant life.
That's right. And so since you said you were in your 50s and I shared I'm 56, I remember being a little girl sitting on the floor in the gym and they shared a song with us. Love isn't something till you give it away. Give it away. Give it away. Love isn't something till you give it away. You'll end up having more. It's just like a magic penny. Hold it tight and you won't have any. Lend it, spend it, and you'll have so many. Roll all over the floor. And it was just just give it away, give it away, give it away. So Dawn,
Yep.
what an honor. I cannot wait to connect you with people who are like-minded, who function in love, who want to be, love dealers, right? Hope dealers. And I really thank you for your time. And I just pour an overabundance of blessing over you and your family for
Thank you.
continuing to carry this baton.
Yay. Thank you so much.
Yeah. And I want to thank all of our viewers for coming to this episode of Sagionic 1027. And until our next broadcast and our next guest, may the Lord bless you. May the Lord keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon thee always. Blessings. Bye.